Okay, so last week, January the 3rd, The X-Files came back on in America, and this is yet to air in the UK from what I understand, but obviously this being 2018, technology being what it is, us in the UK can get hold of these episodes as well. I don't feel too bad about obtaining these episodes in any kind of dodgy way, because I will be paying for the Blu-ray when this comes out, so believe you me, they're going to get the money's worth from me anyway. But anyway, what do I think about this? Because I have seen the first two episodes, because the first episode aired in America on Wednesday the 3rd of January. Second episode aired on Wednesday the 10th of January. For what I understand, the next few episodes are going to be week to week. There's not going to be any major delays between episodes. So I really liked the second episode. The first one I had some major issues with, but the episode in and of itself was okay, but it had some issues. So let's do this chronologically anyway. So the first episode of Series 11, if you've seen Series 10, you'll remember how that series ended basically on a cliffhanger. You've got Mulder pretty much near death in a car on a bridge in heavy traffic. You've got this big outbreak of this virus, whatever the hell you want to call it. Scully arrives to try to save him. She says they're out of time, the only way that they can save him is if they find their long-lost son that they gave up for adoption back in 2002. And then this giant flying triangle alien spaceship hovers over the bridge. And the last time we saw it do something like this, it actually blew a car up. And it looks like it's about to do the same thing to the car that Mulder is in. And that's how they ended it. Now, Series 11, Episode 1, pretty much starts off with Mulder is in hospital, but he's not ill, he's fine. And he's actually looking over Agent Scully, who is in a coma. How the hell did they get from there to there? That's what, instantly you're thinking, what the hell's going on here? Well, basically, that entire last episode of Series 10 has been retconned. And if you don't know what that means, basically the events of episode 6, the last episode of Series 10, no longer relevant. It didn't happen. It was all a dream, basically, or a premonition. It was one of Scully's visions that she's having in this coma that she's having. Yet, weirdly, the episode wasn't seen from her point of view. You saw things happen in the episode that she wasn't sort of experiencing, so for that to be her dream would be a little bit weird, but whatever. And also there's certain things in that episode, like cigarette smoking man still being alive, which still hold as true in this first episode of Series 11, because he is still alive even though they brought him back and it was just a dream, but he's actually alive though. And it's kind of weird, because if you remember that last episode of Series 10, cigarette smoking man had a face off, basically. He had no face. But then in this episode, his face is completely rebuilt. So what the hell? They've never done anything this goofy in the X-Files before, and they have done some goofy things. And don't get me wrong, I'm a big X-Files apologist. I'm a big fan. I even like this episode to a certain degree. But what they did here was just really stupid. And it's had some pretty heavy criticisms. Clearly Chris Carter wanted some kind of change of direction, or had to go through some change of direction after the way they left things in Series 11 of The X-Files. I always said it'd be kind of interesting in The X-Files to have an Independence Day style event that you actually got to see, because they always spoke about this throughout the series. Colonization was going to happen, the date is set, all that kind of stuff, but you never actually saw that happen until this episode in Series 10, the last episode of Series 10. It all starts kicking off. It's like, whoa, okay, this is no longer, the mysterious kind of corners of the X-Files universe where paranormal happens. This is happening in the streets, everybody's seeing this. And then they've just retconned it anyway, so not really happy with that. It kind of, for 2 years, we've kind of established that this is where the X-Files has gone, and now they've just kind of changed that, so But other than that, the episode was kind of okay. Had Cigarette Smoking Man was in it. Agent Reyes was in it. I don't want to get too heavy into spoilers for the sake of it, but they kind of brought out the this new Syndicate. If you remember the Syndicate in the X-Files back in, I think they first appeared in the last episode of Series 2. And they were in it for about 5 years, and then they all kind of got killed off. The Smoking Man was the last member of the Syndicate. But in this episode, it kind of brings a couple into this, a man and a woman. The woman is played by actress Barbara Hershey, quite known sort of actress from horror films, really old horror films, but she's also had some new stuff as well. She was in the first 2 Insidious movies, and she's in this as well, as a kind of syndicate member, where they're talking about having some kind of, plateau that they're going to kind of move on to when the alien invasion happens, and they'll be safe because they've got kind of redundancies to kind of cope with it. But in order to do that, they have to work against the Cigarette Smoking Man. It's all very complicated and all very mysterious. They don't fully explain this, although it does follow up in the next episode, Series 2, which I'll get to in a moment. But I think that in some ways they kind of had to go back and undo certain things that they did in that last episode of Series 10, because it was a little bit too much, really. Like I say, it was too Independence Day kind of alien invasion for the X-Files to really handle, because the X-Files concept from the beginning was always, like Chris Carter says, it's only as scary as it is believable. And if you're having all this kind of stuff happening, like I say, an Independence Day thing, it's no longer believable. It's kind of escapism. I mean, it's always going to be escapism to a certain degree, but it's a bit too far out there and you can't really relate to it, therefore it's not as scary. And it's not really the X-Files at that point. So I can see why they've done what they did. I'm not saying I agree with it or that it works, but I can see why they did it. So there's a slight bit of forgiveness there, but it's only slightly. So Series 10, Episode 2, I thought was a really good improvement, and probably my favourite episode of all the ones that they've done so far since they brought the last series back. It was a bit more of a serious episode, but it had some humour to it as well. And it also brought Langley back from the Lone Gunman. It only brings him back, it doesn't bring Byers and Frohike back, sadly. But it brings him back in such a way, because I was kind of discussing this with my co-reviewer that's been in some of my other videos. We've talked about the X-Files, the core. We were talking about this, we knew that they were bringing Langley back, and we were kind of saying, well, how are they going to do this? I hope they don't mess it up, because they kind of brought them back in Series 10 for a bit of a sort of cameo. And it kind of made sense because it was a dream, so fair enough, you can dream about people that have passed away. It doesn't, doesn't really mean that it's far-fetched or anything. In this one, they to a certain degree, they've brought Langley back. And again, this is a spoiler video, so if you don't want to know what happens, basically, you might remember an episode in Series 5 called Kill Switch. And this episode doesn't tie in with that, but it's a similar concept. That was an episode where there was artificial intelligence, where people could upload their consciousness to a computer, basically, and it could kind of get out there on the internet or whatever. So that way, even if your physical body dies, your mind will live forever. That's pretty much what they've done with Langley. And there's a government program, and it ties in with that. The remnants of the Syndicate that are kind of back in the last episode, like I say, with Barbara Hershey and this other older guy. They've got this redundancy to deal with the alien invasion when it happens, to keep humans, or the elites, whatever, alive. And presumably this wasn't the redundancy, but this was a big part of it. Part of it was to store people's consciousness so that they would survive, because all animals, all humans, it's going to be burnt to the ground, basically, Barbara Hershey says in this episode, when the alien invasion happens. So to deal with that, they have this system in place where they can upload people's consciousness, people that are useful, basically. So people like Steve Jobs, geniuses, tech wizards, they're all in there now, but you have to die to have your mind kind of go in this place. And Langley is in there as well. And it kind of deals with that, but obviously it's not a very nice place to be. Your consciousness is in there, and you're kind of doing work for the government as well. but you're kind of a slave. And Langley says this because he comes back and he talks to Mulder through his phone. He kind of finds a way to find Mulder through his smartphone and speak to him, kind of sends him messages and stuff. So really nice stuff in this anyway. You also get to see Deep Throat's grave as well, which is pretty cool. You get to see his name as written on the grave. So, yeah, I won't go too far beyond that, but I'd say I recommend watching these episodes. But like I say, that first episode of the series is a little bit dodgy, let's just put it that way. It kind of stands up on its own merits, but the retcon thing I'm not really happy with, and I think it was really silly, and they dropped the ball with that. I mean, they had a chance really to bring the X-Files back and undo kind of the stinker that was left with that last episode of Series 9, which was basically just a flashback episode, and it kind of went out with a whimper. They kind of dropped the ball a little bit. For a moment, they've dropped the ball, and hopefully the rest of this series is going to be great. I quite like Series 10 on the whole. It's just a few little things, but hopefully, like I say, Series 11 is gonna really be good. And this last episode, if it's any indication, I'd say it's going in the right direction now. So every episode is going to be week to week, from what I understand, at least for the next couple of episodes. Anyway, I've seen the schedule for those. So there's 10 episodes, which I think should take us through to sometime in late March. So we'll see how it goes. I'll be doing full reviews of these on this channel, so if you want to check back Brand X Reviews, you can follow us on Facebook, YouTube obviously, and Instagram. For now, I'll just leave it there and say thank you very much for watching, and the truth is out there.
There once was a chap called Kor, who had an almighty roar. He was friends with the buff, who showed him his nuts, and Tufus took it up from behind.